We're going to have a little fireside chat this morning talking about that exact collaboration, how humans and robots come together and drive business optimization. So, before we get started, we'll do a couple quick intros. I'm Aaron Trahan, the founder of Performance Mindset. We are a performance based business coaching firm helping small and medium sized tech businesses scale smarter. I think we all know that all growth is not created equal, and I'm just a big believer that long-term sustainable growth always beats rapid expansion. And a bit about my background, leadership and the opportunity to lead happened much earlier in my career than expected. At just 23 years old, I was thrown into and put in charge to temporarily run a $100 million business. And if I'm being honest with the room here, the leadership team at the time thought nothing more of this as a temporary solution until a more qualified replacement can get in. But I had a different idea. I wanted to use this opportunity to scale my career, make that catapult to the next level, and luckily that's what happened. So over the course of the coming years, I was promoted several times, put in charge in a senior executive role, member of the executive leadership team, and found myself having the responsibility of leading a billion-dollar publicly traded company by the age of 30. But the reality behind that journey is I've made every single mistake I think you could possibly make in leadership. And the two key experiences that were takeaways for me was, one, you can't scale a team, business, or organization faster than you scale yourself as a leader. And then two, to never grow a business faster than your ability to manage it. The graveyard's full of companies, most especially tech companies, that grew too quickly, weren't able to effectively manage it, and ultimately collapsed under the weight of their growing pains. And so today I help tech businesses really scale and grow the right way, focused on sustainable growth. So I'll turn it over to Sam for a brief intro.
Wow, amazing. Starting at 23, amazing. So I was in the academia at 23. I finished my PhD at 26, teached in university for 2 years, started my own business, grow it, did an exit strategy, started another one, third one. So I'm a serial entrepreneur right now. This is my fourth, let's call it round. And I worked in different domains, but my research was about automatic reasoning 30 years ago, what we call today AI. And at that time, in fact, we have been trying to do mini robots. We call it nanorobot. And the objective was to do delayed release applications, killing cancer cells, and it didn't work 30 years ago. It was too early. And I think it's still too early for that kind of applications. 3 years ago, I came up with the term digital robot. And it's AI that can do things. But Bill Gates is richer, and he imposed the term agent. So agent or digital robot is the same. It's a robot that can do things, but has no mechanical or physical extension. Even if the last, let's call it agent from Google, they can open the camera and interact with people. But they're still, in my opinion, in the domain of digital robot. Physical robot, it's funny because science fiction put in our head the concept of a robot that looked like a human holding a gun and running after us to kill us, and they call it Terminator. Unfortunately, that will never happen. The killer robot exists. It's called a drone, right? Why you will give it a human shape when you can give it an airplane shape, right? So that's the idea. The real robot will not look like a human. It will be integrating a useful application. Most of them are industrial robots, arms that can do big things. But we have also autonomous car. Autonomous car is what? You don't need a human-shaped robot to drive the car, right? It's inside the car, and it's a robot. And it's one of the major things that will change society, I think.
I couldn't agree more. And what better way to kind of launch the conversation? And you know what's interesting is Sam and I was talking earlier this morning, and if we were to have this same talk maybe 2 years ago, 18 months ago, it probably would have drifted on the lines of science fiction, right? But I think when we think about how humans and robotics, even as Sam mentioned, the digital robots that are now showing up in everyday life, it is fully centered as a nonfiction conversation, as we all have experiences with that collaboration unfolding in the marketplace today. And so, Sam, the first question that I wanted to throw out to you was how you see the human robot collaboration evolving over the next 5 to 10 years, and how that's has the potential to shape business operations.
Oh my God, I think we are in a very funny times. And when you say 5 to 10 years, I don't think anyone can imagine 5 to 10 years anymore. Let's say 2 to 3.
Yeah, that's right.
I think, first of all, we have the immediate revolution, and we saw it already, autonomous car, and then maybe drone. And drone, it's funny because people sometimes, when they said Amazon is experiencing delivery with drone, people thought that drone will be flying all over the distances. But bear in mind, what they are experimenting is drone that goes into their warehouse to get the package to an autonomous car. And then autonomous car will drive to your house, and then another drone will take the package from the autonomous car to your door. And that's not science fiction. Or in 5 years, that maybe started next year. I don't know. It depends on their human decisions to do it. And it's scary. So I don't know how many people are relying on this kind of jobs. And the scare is not that AI is dangerous or in the Terminator term. I think it's scary because of social problems, because we have a lot of robotic human jobs. It's good they disappear. I don't think driving an Uber or a delivery truck 8 hours a day is good for your back, right? Or for your health. But still a lot of people relying on that. The other scary things is how much you are willing to accept that robot will do, it will be present in your house. According to Elon Musk, in 5 years, everybody will have a domestic robot, right? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. And I think you bring up such an insightful point that the way that robotic automation shows up in business operations could be, in a lot of cases, how organizations serve consumers more effectively, more efficiently, more quickly in the future. And I think Amazon spoiled us all, right? I think just about anywhere in the country, if not in many parts of the world, we now expect when we click a button and make a purchase that that product's going to show up at our doorstep no longer than 48 hours away. And so, to the point that you just made, using robotics to continue to streamline, most especially supply chains, how goods make their way from the manufacturing floor to a consumer's front door, is absolutely shaping how operations happen. And I just can't, I can't forget, I spent some time working at Amazon and got to tour some of their what's called Kiva fulfillment centers. And for those of you that are aware, Amazon acquired a company named Kiva, a robotics company, and really started to implement that technology in their fulfillment centers. And if you've been or drove by an Amazon fulfillment center, it's usually a warehouse in the shape of multiple football fields. And as I was touring this facility, it struck me that as I could look out into the fulfillment center, it was pitch black. Couldn't see anything. And as you began to walk into different parts of the location, the lights would turn on, and you've got robots all around the facility going, picking things out of cages, off the shelves, getting it ready to that next stage of getting it to a truck that ultimately, maybe today or yesterday takes it, to a place that gets it to your home. But that could show up as a drone leaving from that warehouse at some point in the future, delivering it right to your house. And so, yeah, I think we're starting to, and I think that's really where the big shift is, of taking the concept of human robotic collaboration from the science fiction to it actually showing up today as a nonfiction part of how businesses are operationalizing efficiency. But you also brought up something around certain industries, right? Like we've thought of this as kind of a scary topic in the past, that robotics are going to come in the form of humans with a gun, or taking our jobs, but it may not look that way. And so a question I wanted to throw out to you, Sam, is as you kind of look at the landscape in the future, what industries do you believe are most at risk of being transformed by the human robotic collaboration that we know is coming?
I think everything, and everything quickly and at once. That's the scary thing. And it's scary also. Again, social politics. Are they going to follow up with us? I don't think so. Even if now Elon Musk is involved somehow, but still, it's not just one person. It's not just one decision. You have a lot of things happening, and we are not ready. But it will happen quicker than we think, because of what you said. It will make us more money, and greed is our part of society. So let's add the third partner for human robotics, which is greed, and people will love to spend less and gain more. So I think immediately it's the digital robots. We saw it everywhere. So digital robots is the first step. We'll have this agent growing and growing very fast, from phone agent that will answer the phone and interact with your client. And even if you have a custom AI, you can program the AI to be manipulative and persuasive. Okay, so this is, I think, the immediate things. We are seeing it already starting. Try to have a conversation with the new Grok, and you will be amazed. And it's not in the application of phone calling outbound yet, but within a month or two it will be. So this is the first thing. But immediately after that, I will think of autonomous car. Autonomous car is maybe the second more vulnerable job that will be taken out of society.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And the one thing that I think we can all validate that Sam said, I work with a lot of businesses around the country, and regardless of which sector or industry they may be in, how they're serving customers, I think the underlying need or desire for every business of any shape or size is to be able to generate better results faster with fewer resources. It is the stereotypical definition of finding operating leverage in the business. And I think that's what you're bringing up, is whether it be in the digital format or the hardware format, I think automation by way of robotics in some form or fashion is an absolute win for businesses to be more efficient, to find more operating leverage. And around that, the industries that are going to see the most transformation, yeah, it's hard to ignore what's going to happen on our highways and roads. And when I think about the industries that have the biggest potential to be transformed by the human robot collaboration, I kind of go to the outcome. Where's the biggest problem that needs to be solved that this collaboration could help solve? And if you just look at the facts, you look at the, maybe not number one, but certainly a top three cause of death of people in the United States under 45 years old is auto accidents. By a show of hands, who's taken a ride in an autonomous vehicle yet? Has anybody had a chance to? I see an absolute no in the back there, absolute refusal. But so I live in Austin, and Waymo was just approved to start doing autonomous vehicle rides. So I haven't got a chance to ride one in my hometown just yet, but yeah, I think this movement is happening. So you see Waymo already out there. I think we've all seen Elon's robo-taxi that's coming. And so yeah, for me, it's hard to see a potentially bigger transformative impact of human robot collaboration than what we may see in a roadway coming near us soon, by having some of the driving and the risk that comes with humans driving, robots taking on a bigger and bigger role there.
This is interesting because I think the term deployment of new technology is the upcoming risk at short term. is when you have cars driven by human and autonomous car in the same road. This is, I think, is dangerous. If it's all autonomous cars, it's not dangerous.
Mm,
It's more they will communicate with each other, right? They organize with each other.
yeah.
But we human, no, we don't like that. Like it's one of the major cause of accident because people don't follow the rules, right? Machine will be following the rules. And yes, there is bugs, and people always saying, yeah, 1 of 1 million will okay, but still in terms of percentage, better for humanity. Here we have other problems like how you deploy it, right? Even in the companies, we are talking about changing culture in a major way, going from a culture of using human labor to robotics. And in our imagination, robots used to be mechanical robots, right? Now that we are talking about digital robots and AI, it's also smart, not just dumb machine. So it's not only it's not only a question of changing procedures in a mechanical way, but also you mentioned it, logistics. And it's a big challenge, but still the magical things as well, AI can help you doing this. So you can do this transformation by the help of AI and it will be accelerated. Now I would ask you a question because you have been in these big companies and I think here experience matters. How easy it is to do this culture of change quickly in a big companies?
Yeah, I think that's a big question, and it's ultimately going to come down, in my opinion, is the willingness of leadership to embrace it, and not only that, but how they're able to communicate the why behind embracing it. And I think at an organizational level, it's usually the why that matters most. And so it's one thing to say we're going to deploy AI, we're going to deploy robotics, but getting a workforce that could be anywhere from 100 people to 100,000 people, helping everyone understand why it is we're doing this. What does the business gain? How will we measure performance, and how will we know whether this deployment or not, and the upfront investment, both from a capital standpoint and then time, energy, effort, and the inevitable bumps along the road is going to be worth it? How do we know we're making progress there? And so as I kind of think about that, it really comes down to these specific use cases an organization has, tying back to that every organization desire, better results, faster with fewer resources. How does that actually show up with how an organization is defining success and bridging the gap around how either AI or robotics will help us accelerate the progress to get there? But I think we're dancing around a pretty important topic, and maybe we'll even call that the 800-pound gorilla in the room, where I continue to hear, we all see it, we all hear it, the general anxiety that comes from the workforce around AI and robotics entering in a deployment stage within the business. And so as we think about it through the lens of workforce redesign, what message would you have for organizations that maybe not at the leadership level, but for some of the employees at lower levels in the organization, everyone wondering, is AI or robotics going to take my job? What's your thoughts on that? What message would you help organizations deliver?
I think we need to be honest with ourselves. And if you think your job can be defined to robot, then start looking for other skills immediately. Don't wait until it will happen. It will not happen next year, but it's going to happen within 3 years. And I think humans have superpower, will not be replaced by machine. But it's up to us to find our skills that machine cannot do. And also something very interesting you are saying, okay, I will be replaced. But also you will be empowered. Because the same way big companies have access to these robots, you will be having access to these robots. And if we talk about digital robots, it's practically very affordable. So I think here we have a self-reflection in terms of companies as well. I'm not talking individually, but a company as an entity needs to have a strategic plan to upgrade their practice, their services, their offers, and to deploy robots of all kind. It depends on their activity, of course. We are talking about Amazon. They did it already. They are not waiting for us. And I'm telling people all the time, Amazon has the biggest and strongest AI on the planet, and they don't share it with us. They use it to manipulate the planet and sell their products. So in terms of advice, the deadline was 2 days ago. We are late. We need to act now, have a strategic plan individually at the business level, how I will upgrade my practice, my business, how I will use robot to my advantage. In fact, I used to use that term I have 3 girls, and I said I want them to live in a time when robots work for them and not they will have one day an AI or a robot tax collector. That will be scary, right? If the robot is coming to govern us, that's what's scary. But it's not the robot, it's human beings who will be using the AI or the robots. That is scary. And it's time to do your plan 2 days ago, so we are late, and to see how I will do it strategically. And we are here in a conference, and one of the companies that I know are preparing a physical robot to attend the conference. It will be doing transcript, talking with people. The technology we have, it needs just to be there, deployed. So we are at the very, very funny times.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it was already stated on a prior panel this morning, but it's a quote that's kind of gone viral over the past couple of years, that a CEO of a tech company said, most employees don't need to worry about AI taking their job. They should be more worried about another person that knows how to better leverage AI. That's where the fear needs to be. And I can't help but hearing you talk about that, how much exposure comes into play. And so if you think about the average employee who may be a little skittish around AI or robotics entering the workforce and the risk that it could have to their employment, it really comes down to a lack of exposure up to this point, where robotics and AI was thought of this sci-fi kind of fictional narrative here. But hearing you say that, I can't help but jump back to, I've got 2 small kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they love going to Chick-fil-A. But not for the reasons you think. Our local Chick-fil-A, when you walk in, you scan a code at the table, and it's a robot that delivers the food to the table. And so our kids love to go to Chick-fil-A, not for the food, not for the playground. Their number one source of entertainment is they want the robot to deliver the food to the table. And so I think it's going to be an interesting development as we have an entirely new generation growing up. I sure as hell at 4 years old didn't have exposure to a robot delivering food to my table at a Chick-fil-A. So it'll be interesting to see as the younger generation that are growing up in an environment where robotics and AI as part of their daily lives is more nonfiction than sci-fi fiction. It's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds.
But here where it comes our community role to speak up and keep humanity first, right? That means robots need to be our friends. We need to collaborate with them and use them, but we need to avoid let's call it the shadow of the singularity, when you will have robots our bosses. So, and that will be by interaction with the human. But if we go back to people here are interested in marketing and business, I think we are behind a lot here in terms of deployment. Technology has been here already, and it's a challenge in terms of investment. But I think if we don't invest today in this new robotics revolution, someone else will be, and will be behind. You are talking about Chick-fil-A robots, right? It's coming. It's coming. A lot of people will adapt that if it's successful, and it will be successful. If it's generation 1 is not good, second, third would be great.
Yeah, I agree. And, because of this panel or fireside chat being all around how AI and robotics can drive business performance and optimization, as a tech business leader several times over, really at the forefront of leveraging AI, I think it'd be interesting to hear from you, your thoughts on, because at the end of the day, leadership embracing robotics and AI can't just be a hobby, can't just be a pet project. We all have boards that we answer to, and the question inevitably comes up, how is this going to make an impact? So when it comes to the key performance indicators or the business impact and outcomes, what advice would you have for other business leaders and founders on when we think about the impact to a business, when we think about the outcomes that it can generate and the KPIs we need to look for, what message would you give to business leaders on where the business impact could most likely show up from a KPI standpoint?
I think it's existential. Like traditional KPI has been, it's a technology, by the way, KPI, it's a technology based on what I call the ERP second generation, when you have a lot of data and then you can analyze it using machine, right? And you can draw this beautiful dashboarding of KPI. But now with AI, things are much faster. The time you have a human looking at the KPI, it's changed already. So I will tell them it's existential. It's not your traditional things. It's not what it used to be. So if you look at KPI today, be sure it's not today, it's the past already. And what, they will tell me, okay, what's the solution? The solution is in the sickness itself. Why it's changing fast? Because you have AI agent everywhere and you have robotic raising and changing things fast. So you need to develop your own software, your own AI that go in that direction. So in terms of KPI, it's a very good question, but at the same time, it's a wake-up call that even that model of management is at risk. Even checking our old management habit, it's maybe not working. Maybe you need just to talk with the up-to-date AI and ask it what was the trending today? What are the things today? We are there already. If you talk today with the new AI technologies that can go to the web in real time, you can ask it what's the trending, and it can calculate for you the trending numbers that you want. But for in terms of robotics, adoption of technology, I think it's existential. The real question they need to ask, will my company with current business model survive the digital or physical robots revolution that's coming?
Yes. And to add to that, I speak to a lot of businesses and boards around this topic, right? What do we get? We see the upfront price tag. We know the implementation, the deployment, but what do we get? And I always steer the conversation back to every business, especially as we look forward, has to find more creative ways to generate operating leverage. And every business wants to grow, but as I mentioned earlier, not all growth is good. And we are not in the same market today as we were in 2020 and 2021 and early 2022. The capital markets have completely changed. The investor bases have completely changed in terms of what they're looking for out of a business. No longer will just a great growth rate go out and allow you to get unlimited funding. Now everybody, whether it's the public market or private market, wants to see where are you generating operating leverage? How can you get to a cash flow break even or profitability standpoint? And when I think about businesses implementing and what they need to look for with implementing AI and robotics, it should be fully focused on how they can leverage it to create operating leverage. Because the fact of the matter is, if you grow by $1, but it costs you $1 to get that growth, that's not scaling. That's just treading water at a higher level. And so the idea in an ideal world is how can you leverage these technologies to generate $5 of growth that may cost you less than $1 to achieve it. That's creating that spread between your output and your inputs. That's going to look different for a lot of businesses, but I think it's the frame of mind that I provide a lot of guidance in is how do you use the technology to generate that spread? Because if you can't and you're just growing, but it's costing you more and more dollars to grow, the outcome is just a bigger cash burn. And so in terms of looking forward with your deep knowledge set in AI and the tech space. What are you most excited about?
In fact, I think let's go back to robots. I'm excited mostly about what I call it the ghost in the shell. That means how you can incorporate what we have right now as digital robots with a minimum investment to make physical robot. I was telling you the example of having a salesperson coming with you as a robot, right? That's what? An iPad on a wheel? That's what it is practically, right? So I think what I'm excited for is how also we can use that in medical technologies. Most of my investment these days is in that field. I invest mostly not in AI companies. I have one, and I think it's a very risky investment because whatever you do in AI today, people will copy it tomorrow with a fraction of price. Okay, but if you go and use that technology in practical applications, that's what will give you advantage. So I think the most amazing things is to use a combination of digital robot with physical robot with a minimum investment. This is you can do immediately. And the second thing is medical applications. Medical applications, oh my God. We have a great system of health in the US, but also I think it's very resistive to technology. So if you talk with doctors, most of them, they don't use even ChatGPT. They don't know what that is. And we understand that because in their job, it's not relevant, right? But still, the application using robotics in surgery, in procedures, I think I'm very excited with that. That would be game changer.
Yeah, and I know we've talked a lot about AI in the form of the digital robot, but yeah, it's something you keep seeing the updates. And for all those in the audience, does anybody listen to the All In Pod? Kind of the Yeah, I see several hands, and so it's kind of the leading business and technology podcast in the world right now. And yeah, they're doing some interesting work. And one of their big calls for 2025 was a pretty significant leap forward in hardware robotics this year. You're seeing a lot of things around the world just on the massive leaps. And so as we sit here in March of 2025, just looking backwards 2 years ago, this conversation 2 years ago, most especially around hardware robotics, would absolutely come across as sci-fi. But I think as we're sitting here today and we fast forward to March of 2027, it's hard not to be excited on how hardware robotics is going to show up in ways that we have no idea, that's able to replicate some of the mundane, task-oriented functions that we're all going through, whether it's in a warehouse, on a ranch, in our households. Yeah, hard not to get excited, maybe a little bit of anxious, but maybe a good anxious around the emergence of how we see robotics, not just delivering food to a table in Chick-fil-A, but how we start to see that showing up more in mainstream day-to-day lives.
Agree. And I think you mentioned kids, right? We have a very interesting time of our life when our kids are born with robots and AI in their life, okay? And opportunities are amazing for businesses to capitalize on that as well with a minimum, let's say, let's call it this way. A lot of innovation happening in the digital robot field, very little in the physical one, with the exception maybe of big companies like Tesla and Amazon, right? So I think opportunities are still here, and depends on your field, your domain, but you can always have this small investment where you can use the AI digital robot inside the physical system.
Love it. So final takeaway for the group here, Sam, if you could have the audience members walk away with one insight about the potential of maximizing business efficiency through the human robot collaboration, what would it be?
I will tell you, trust your intuition, okay? Be on do your plan today, not tomorrow. You're already late, okay? And if you woke up with one idea, is you need to have your robotic strategy tonight, figure it out, and start executing it next day. And it doesn't need to be huge, by the way. You don't need to do, I don't know, you don't need to build Jervis of Iron Man into your company, not to this level. But at least you have a plan, and maybe within a year it will be very rewarding.
Yeah, I'm my message would be along those same lines, and I think the operative word is kind of in the question, right? And it's efficiency. And back to that statement that every business of any size in any industry, especially as we may be going into tougher times in the next 5 years than it may have been in the prior 5 years, is competition is going to be more intense. Winning market share is going to be tougher. And so when we think about efficiency and optimization within the business, I would challenge the audience to have the takeaway of how can we use this in my business in any way, shape, or form to drive efficiency, to find that operating leverage. Because if you don't, and you're forced to compete against someone who is and aggressively going down that path, it could be even more challenging to win. And so I think in the world where we're all looking to generate better results faster with fewer resources, this is the time period to engage in and gravitate towards both the digital and hardware where applicable benefits that AI and robotics can provide versus shying away from it. Anything to add to that?
I think also you need always in your plan, efficiency is great, robotic is great, but also human touch. Because if you don't put your human expertise into your plan or your business and you rely only on automation and robot, be sure that everybody can copy that. Robots are available to everyone, right? You need to put your human expertise in the center of your plan.
Love that. Well, we've got a few minutes left, so I think we've got time for a couple questions. Here's the first one.
I think this is, you are putting your hand on the major point, which is retraining. And the solution comes from your plan to embrace technology, training people to use it, deploy it. In my company, I have everyone on the pro plan of ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, all AI, and then we have structured that in an SOP. So first of all, AI will help you doing this, and empowering people with AI and chatbot is the minimum. Now, is it challenging? Yes, I agree with you. It's not easy. People don't want to learn necessarily new things, and a lot of people are happy with, let's call it, a comfort zone. So it's one of the major challenges, but I think the pretty part is you can use automation and AI itself to drive that changes. Think about creating dynamic, using AI, motivational things according to your own project, and send it as messages to your group to do, hey, check this with that, do this one, and so on. And also, I think in these current revolution of technology, the structure of the company would be changed. Maybe you don't need the traditional human resources department anymore or consulting. Maybe you need a technology officer that will help you manage the human resources better.
Yeah, and I would add that even if you're that visionary leader, just providing what we're going to do is not going to be enough. And I think beyond what we're doing, why we're doing it is even more valuable. And so for any leader trying to navigate a fast changing environment and then communicating the deployment and implementation of AI or robotics, I think you've got to bring that down from the high concept abstract for your teams and make it real. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Here's how we're defining success. And these are the metrics that are important to our business, whether that's profitability lifetime value for the consumer, top line revenue, whatever it is, bridge the gap to your organization of we're doing this to be able to generate better performance or better value to our consumers in this way. If you leave out that back part and just say we're implementing AI to drive efficiency, you're going to have an organization wondering what the hell does that mean? And so I would just challenge leaders that are communicating this strategy and going forward with this, provide the so what. We're implementing AI and robotics to become more efficient and optimize the business. Assume your organization is going to say, so what? What does that mean? Provide the why behind doing it and show them exactly where within your scorecards or dashboards or however performance is being gauged, show them where you anticipate through the adoption and deployment of where it's going to drive business performance. That makes it real. Everyone now knows why we're doing it, and you'll typically get more people on the bandwagon. It's not going to be a one and done. I think we all know that. You can't say it once and expect the organization to jump on, but at least gives the organization the understanding of why we're doing this and what we expect to get out of it. That will certainly help with buy-in. One more question. Yeah, that's a great question. I'll take the first stab at this one and then turn it over to Sam. But yeah, I think we are approaching kind of the buzzword inflation time period, right? I think it's going to come down to a point from whether it's your investors, your board, the market, you're going to have to start showing some results. And I think, if the capital markets continue to get tougher, which absolutely bleeds down into the private markets, no longer are you just going to be able to go out and get funding saying that you're working on AI or implementing AI, because AI is showing up everywhere. AI is going to be involved in everything that we do. I mean, now I use Zoom's AI features to provide recaps to my clients. And so just about every single software product or platform that we use today is going to have some function of AI built into it. I almost kind of think about AI, it's, when's the last time you got into a car and put it in reverse and there wasn't kind of a rear view camera or video on the dash? That's kind of like what operating without AI kind of feels like in the business world, is trying to go in reverse without the backup camera. And so I think from an investor standpoint in how you communicate, whether it's capital raise or through existing shareholders, it's not all that different of a message from what we just talked about to the employees. They're going to want to know, how are you going to leverage it, and what does that do to the business? What results does that generate with it versus without it? Because I think we're going to be going into a time period where capital is just not going to be as free-flowing as it once was. So you're going to have to kind of show your homework or show your math. How is AI and the implementation of it going to legitimately drive business results that matter to shareholders?
In terms of bots and their effect on stock market or public, let's call it media manipulation, I see of it not only risk but also opportunities. We still need regulations, I think, to govern that. We are behind in terms of regulation of this kind of things, but also think about it as opportunities. Now, if we are coming to investment, I think any due diligence today, if they are smart, they will use AI to discover, is that real or using bot and inflation, right? An amplification of the truth. Like, you can use bot to put your news everywhere. That doesn't mean that people are interested in your news. And there is a way to measure that using AI itself, because you can send another AI agent that will scan who is really engaged in your news, not only share the news with a bot, right? So it goes two directions. The same way you can use AI to falsify things, you can use AI or technology to detect falsification. And here is the answer. You need to use both in two directions.
Well said, and a great way to end. So thanks, everybody. Great questions, and look forward to connecting with you more here at the conference. Thank you.